Welcome to Nightmare Fuel Stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the stories. Number adrift, the Mariner-9 space station wasn't supposed to make noise, not the kind I was hearing. I've been stationed aboard this decrepit orbital platform for 137 days, alone except for the occasional supply drone. The isolation pay was excellent, but tonight, as I drifted through the dimly lit corridors of the station's eastern arm, I was beginning to question if any amount of money was worth this. Tap, tap, scrape, there it was again. A sound like fingernails on metal coming from somewhere within the walls, probably just thermal expansion, I told myself. The station was, after all, a relic, commissioned in 2079, almost 50 years ago. The oldest continuously operating orbital platform in Earth's mesosphere, a museum piece that should have been decommissioned decades ago. Station, run diagnostic on life support systems in Eastern Corridor, I said aloud. The station's AI responded in its flat, feminine voice. All systems functioning within normal parameters, Dr. Kessler. I sighed, pushing off from a handrail to propel myself toward the hydroponics bay. My official title was Environmental Systems Engineer, but in reality, I was more of a caretaker. A glorified janitor making sure the old girl kept spinning until they finally decided to let her rest. The hydroponics bay was my favorite place on the station, the only place that felt truly alive. Green leaves and vines sprawled across carefully arranged growing panels, basking in artificial light. The air was thick with moisture and the earthy smell of plants. It was almost possible to forget I was floating in a metal can 250 miles above Earth. I checked the nutrient feeds on the tomato plants, making a note to adjust the nitrogen levels. As I worked, my mind drifted back to the sounds I'd been hearing. It wasn't the first time. For the past week, strange noises had been echoing through the station, tapping, scraping, once what sounded distinctly like whispering. I'd run every diagnostic the system offered. Nothing. The station was old, I reminded myself. Old things make noises as they settle, but space stations don't settle, not like houses on Earth. My tablet chimed, pulling me from my thoughts. A message from Mission Control. Dr. KESSLER supplied drone DELAYD 72 hours due to unexpected solar activity. Confirm sufficient resources. I swiped to reply. Confirmed. Adequate supplies on hand, 3 more days alone. I tried not to let it bother me. I'd chosen this assignment after all. After what happened on the Demeter mission, I'd needed solitude, space to think, to forget. The irony wasn't lost on me, seeking solace in actual space. I finished my work in hydroponics and pushed off toward the mess hall. Time for dinner, though my appetite had been waning lately. As I drifted through the central hub, my eyes were drawn to the large observation window. Earth hung below, a blue marble wrapped in swirling white clouds. Beautiful, serene, something moved in the reflection of the glass. I spun around, heart suddenly pounding. The corridor behind me was empty. Station, I said, my voice embarrassingly unsteady. Run security scan all sectors. Security scan initiated, the AI replied, after a moment. No unauthorized personnel detected, no anomalies found. I rubbed my eyes. Maybe I needed more sleep. The isolation was getting to me, that was all. Even veteran space workers experienced psychological effects after prolonged periods alone. Hallucinations weren't uncommon, but I couldn't shake the feeling I wasn't alone. In the mess hall, I heated a packet of beef stew and strapped myself into the dining chair. As I ate, I scrolled through my tablet, reviewing tomorrow's maintenance schedule. The eastern airlock needed inspection. There had been minor pressure fluctuations over the past month, nothing dangerous but worth checking. Tap, tap, scrape. The sound came from directly above me. I froze, spoon halfway to my mouth. My eyes drifted upward to the ventilation shaft running across the ceiling. Tap, tap, scrape, something was in there, moving. Station, I whispered, scan ventilation system for obstructions or anomalies. Ventilation system operating at 98.7% efficiency. No obstructions detected. I set down my spoon, suddenly not hungry. Run level 2 diagnostic on all sensor arrays. Level 2 diagnostic initiated. Estimated completion time, 47 minutes. I unstrapped myself from the chair and pushed off toward the ceiling. The ventilation cover was secured with 4 simple screws. I could remove it, take a look inside. No, that was how people died in horror movies. I laughed nervously at my own thought, floating back down to collect my half-eaten dinner. I was being ridiculous, probably just a loose component shifting in the air currents. After disposing of my meal, I made my way to the communications center. The room was small, dominated by equipment for maintaining contact with Earth. I sat at the console and opened a channel. Mariner-9 to Mission Control, daily status report. Static hissed for several seconds before a voice responded. Go ahead, Mariner-9. All systems nominal. The eastern airlock is showing minor pressure fluctuations, scheduled for inspection tomorrow. Hydroponics yield is up 3% from last week. I hesitated, then added. Request permission for a full system diagnostic. More static then. Reason for request. I considered telling them about the noises, the reflection I thought I'd seen. But what would they think? That I was cracking under the isolation? That I couldn't handle the assignment? Just being thorough, I replied. The station's getting old. Request approved. Run diagnostic at your discretion. Mission control out. The communication ended, leaving me alone with the soft hum of the equipment. I sighed, pushing away from the console. Maybe I was overreacting. The station was old and old things made noises. But as I drifted back toward my quarters, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, fundamentally wrong. The corridors seemed darker somehow, the shadows deeper. The constant mechanical hum that had become the soundtrack to my life now sounded different, as if something else was layered beneath it, something organic. In my quarters, I secured myself to my sleep station and dimmed the lights. Sleep had been difficult lately, my dreams filled with strange, unsettling images. I closed my eyes, trying to relax. Tap, tap, scrape. My eyes snapped open. The sound was coming from inside the wall next to my head. Close, so close. Station, lights to full, I commanded. The room brightened instantly. I unstrapped myself and floated to the wall, pressing my ear against the cool metal. Silence. Then something else, not tapping this time, but a wet sliding sound, like something viscous moving against metal. I jerked away from the wall, my heart pounding. Station, what's behind this wall? Show me the station schematics. A holographic display appeared, showing a cross-section of my location. Behind the wall was a maintenance conduit, running the length of the residential section. Are there any fluids in this conduit? Any systems that could leak? Negative, Dr. Kessler. The conduit contains electrical wiring and data cables only. I swallowed hard. Run a scan of that specific conduit. Scanning. No anomalies detected. I ran my hands through my hair, frustration building. Either I was losing my mind or something was wrong with the station's sensors. Neither option was particularly comforting. Sleep was out of the question now. I dressed and left my quarters, deciding to conduct a manual inspection of the eastern airlock. Might as well be productive if I couldn't rest. The station was eerily quiet as I made my way through the corridors, the only sound the soft whir of ventilation and my own breathing. The emergency lights cast everything in a dim blue glow, creating long shadows that seemed to move when I wasn't looking directly at them. I reached the eastern airlock and began my inspection, meticulously checking seals and pressure gauges. Everything appeared normal, but I couldn't shake my unease. Something felt off about the entire station tonight. As I worked, my mind drifted back to the Demeter mission. 6 months on Mars, studying the polar ice caps. Everything had gone according to plan until the final week, when Commander Reyes had started acting strangely. Paranoid, talking about sounds in the habitat, voices. No one believed her. We all thought it was just the isolation, the stress of the mission. Until we found her outside the habitat without her suit, her face frozen in an expression of absolute terror. The official report cited equipment failure and psychological break, but I'd checked her suit myself the day before. There was nothing wrong with it. I shook my head, trying to dispel the memory. This was different. I was just on edge, that's all, hearing things because I was expecting to hear things. I finished my inspection and was about to head back to my quarters when something caught my eye, a dark smudge on the inner airlock door. I moved closer, squinting in the dim light. It looked like a handprint, but not a human one. The fingers were too long, too thin, and there seemed to be too many of them. My blood ran cold. I reached out hesitantly and touched the smudge. It was slightly tacky, like half-dried oil. Station, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. When was the eastern airlock last accessed? Eastern airlock was last accessed 47 days ago during routine maintenance by Dr. Kessler. 47 days. And I hadn't left any handprints. I backed away from the airlock, my heart hammering in my chest. Station, run full security protocol. Lock down all airlocks and external access points. Security protocol initiated. All airlocks secured. I needed to get back to the command center. Contact mission control immediately. As I turned to leave, something moved in my peripheral vision. A shadow, darting around a corner at the end of the corridor. Station, I shouted. Security scan now. Scanning. No unauthorized personnel detected. I didn't believe it. I'd seen something, someone. Moving as quickly as possible in zero gravity, I made my way toward the command center, constantly checking over my shoulder. The corridors seemed longer than usual, the shadows deeper. Every sound, the hum of equipment, the hiss of air circulation, seemed magnified, threatening. I reached the command center and immediately activated the emergency communication system. Mariner -9 to mission control, emergency transmission. Repeat, emergency transmission. Static, nothing but static. Mariner -9 to mission control, please respond. More static than a broken, distorted voice. Iner -9, interference, unable to, the transmission cut out entirely. Station, what's wrong with the communication system? Communications experiencing interference, source unknown. Attempting to compensate, this couldn't be happening, I was completely cut off. A new sound reached my ears then, a soft, rhythmic clicking coming from the corridor outside the command center. My entire body tensed. Slowly I turned toward the entrance. The corridor beyond was dark, darker than it should have been. As if the shadows had somehow thickened, congealed into something almost tangible, and within that darkness something moved. Station, I whispered, lights to maximum brightness, all sectors. Nothing happened. Station, respond, silence. The clicking grew louder, closer. I backed away from the entrance, looking frantically around for a weapon, anything I could use to defend myself. There was nothing but equipment bolted securely in place. The darkness in the doorway seemed to pulse, to breathe, and then it began to take shape, a form that made no sense to my human eyes. Long, jointed limbs. A body that seemed to flow rather than move. And eyes, God, the eyes clustered together like those of a spider, but glowing with an intelligence that was unmistakably sentient. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything I recognized. My back hit the far wall of the command center. There was nowhere else to go. The creature paused in the doorway, its cluster of eyes fixed on me. The clicking sound came again, and I realized it was coming from the creature itself, from what might have been a mouth, hidden among the writhing appendages at the center of its mass. Then it spoke, not in words, not exactly. The sound bypassed my ears entirely, seeming to form directly in my mind. You are afraid. Good. Fear makes the meat tender. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This wasn't possible. There was no life in space, nothing that could survive the vacuum, the radiation. We have always been here, in the dark between stars, waiting, watching. The creature began to move again, flowing into the room like oil. I pressed myself harder against the wall, as if I could somehow pass through it. Your kind builds these metal shells, thinking they will protect you. They only make it easier for us to find you. What are you? I managed to ask, my voice barely audible. The creature's form shifted, appendages writhing. We are hunger. We are the void. We are what waits when all else ends. It moved closer, and I could smell it now, a sharp chemical odor that burned my nostrils. One long, segmented limb extended toward me, ending in what looked like a hand with too many fingers, each tipped with a translucent claw. You are not the first to feed us, the female before you. She knew we were here. She tried to warn the others. Commander Reyes, it was talking about Commander Reyes. You were on Mars, I whispered. On the Demeter mission. A sound like wet laughter filled my mind. We are everywhere your kind reaches into the dark. We follow your ships, your stations. We wait, we feed. The limb moved closer, the claw-tipped fingers almost touching my face. I couldn't move, couldn't even scream. Terror had frozen me completely. The female's fear was exquisite. Yours will be too. Something snapped inside me. A primal survival instinct that overrode the paralysis of fear. I lunged sideways, pushing off from the wall with all my strength. In the zero gravity, I shot across the room, past the creature, through the doorway. I didn't look back. Didn't stop. I propelled myself through the corridors as fast as I could, using handrails and walls to change direction, heading for the emergency escape pod. It was my only chance. Behind me I heard that wet, sliding sound again, faster now, urgent, hunting. The creature was following. You cannot escape. This shell is ours now. The voice in my mind was louder, angrier. I tried to block it out, focusing only on my route to the escape pod, left at the next junction, through the central hub, past hydroponics. As I passed the observation window, I caught a glimpse of Earth below, so close. So impossibly far. The sound behind me was getting closer. I pushed harder, ignoring the burning in my muscles, the terror threatening to overwhelm me. I reached the pod access corridor and nearly cried with relief when I saw the escape pod was still there. I'd half expected it to be gone or damaged or somehow transformed into something horrific. You will not leave, you belong to us now. The voice was right behind me. I didn't turn around, couldn't. If I saw that thing again, I might freeze, might lose my last chance. I reached the pod and punched the access code into the keypad. The door slid open agonizingly slowly. I grabbed the edge and pulled myself inside, immediately hitting the emergency launch sequence. Pod launch initiated, announced the pod's computer. Launch in 10 seconds. Something slammed against the closing door. A limb, no, several limbs wedged themselves in the narrowing gap. The door's mechanism whined in protest. Launch in 5 seconds. The limbs pushed harder, forcing the door open wider. I saw those clustered eyes again, glowing with malevolence. You will join us, become part of us. Launch in 3, 2. With a final surge of strength, the creature forced its body halfway through the door. One long limb reached for me, those too many fingers stretching toward my face. The pod detached from the station with a violent jerk. The creature shrieked, a sound that existed both in the air and in my mind, a double assault of agony and rage. The door slammed shut, severing the limbs that had breached the pod. They fell to the floor, twitching, leaking a dark, oily substance that began to smoke against the metal. I watched through the small viewport as the Mariner-9 grew smaller, relief washing over me in waves so intense I felt dizzy. I was safe, I had escaped, then I saw it, a dark patch on the station's hull, spreading like a stain, more of them. There were more of them, they were covering the station, transforming it. The pod's communication system crackled to life. Emergency pod, this is mission control. We've lost contact with Mariner-9. What's your status? I grabbed the comm unit with shaking hands. This is Dr. Kessler. The station is compromised. There's something on board. Something not human. Say again, Dr. Kessler, you're breaking up. There are creatures, I shouted. They were on Mars too. They killed Commander Reyes. They're all over the station. Static hissed then. Dr. Kessler, your vital signs are showing extreme stress. Please try to remain calm. We're tracking your pod and we'll have recovery teams standing by when you reach the splashdown zone. They didn't believe me. Just like no one had believed Commander Reyes, I looked back at the viewport. The Mariner-9 was now just a small, dark shape against the stars, but something about it had changed. Its familiar silhouette was distorted, elongated in places as if parts of it were growing. A cold realization washed over me. The creatures weren't just infesting the station, they were transforming it. Into what I couldn't begin to imagine. I turned away from the viewport, trying to control my breathing. I was safe now. In a few hours, the pod would re-enter Earth's atmosphere and splash down in the Pacific. Recovery teams would pick me up. I would tell them everything, make them understand the danger. Something moved in my peripheral vision. Slowly, I turned my head toward the severed limbs on the floor. They weren't twitching anymore. Instead, the dark fluid leaking from them had formed a puddle that was moving, flowing together, taking shape. Did you think it would be so easy? The voice was back in my head, weaker but unmistakable. The fluid rose up, forming a small, quivering mass that began to grow larger, more defined. Limbs began to sprout from it, thin, jointed things with too many segments. We are not so easily escaped. Where you go, we follow. I lunged for the emergency kit bolted to the wall, ripping it open. Inside was a flare gun. I grabbed it, turned, and fired directly at the forming creature. The flare hit the mass and ignited. The creature shrieked, that double assault of sound again, as flames engulfed it. The fire spread quickly in the oxygen-rich environment of the pod, consuming the alien matter. Warning alarms blared as the pod's fire suppression system activated, spraying foam that quickly extinguished the flames. All that remained of the creature was a charred, smoking residue on the floor. I collapsed into the pod's seat, the flare gun still clutched in my trembling hand. Had I killed it, truly killed it, or was it reforming even now, too small for me to see? The pod continued its descent toward Earth, and I watched the blue planet grow larger through the viewport. Home, safety, or so I had thought, but now I understood the terrible truth. These creatures, whatever they were, had followed humanity from Mars, and now they had infested Mariner-9. How long before they found their way to Earth? Perhaps they already had. I looked down at my hands, remembering how I had touched the strange handprint on the airlock, how the creature's severed limbs had leaked that transformative fluid. Was I contaminated? Was I bringing the infection to Earth myself? The pod's computer announced atmospheric entry in 30 minutes. I had to warn them, had to make them understand. But would they believe me? Or would I end up like Commander Reyes, dismissed as another casualty of space-induced psychosis? As Earth grew larger in the viewport, I made my decision. I couldn't risk it. Couldn't risk bringing this thing, whatever it was, back to Earth. The pod had manual controls for emergency situations. I could override the automated landing sequence, change my trajectory. Instead of the Pacific Ocean, I could aim for the deepest part of the Mariana Trench. The pressure would crush the pod and anything inside it into oblivion. It would be quick, final. My hand hovered over the manual override. Was I being paranoid? Was I about to throw my life away because of a hallucination, a delusion brought on by isolation? We are patient. We can wait. The voice was fainter now, almost a whisper, but it was there, inside my head, inside me. I looked at the charred residue on the floor. Was I seeing things, or was it moving slightly, reforming? Atmospheric entry in 20 minutes. I made my choice. I engaged the manual override and began inputting new coordinates. The Mariana Trench, nearly 7 miles deep. Nothing could survive that pressure, not even these creatures. I hoped as I finished entering the coordinates I noticed something on my hand, a small, dark smudge where I had touched the residue. It was spreading, creeping up my wrist like a stain. We are in you now, part of you. You cannot escape us. I stared at my hand in horror as the darkness spread, moving up my arm. I could feel it now, a cold, crawling sensation beneath my skin. My flesh rippling, changing. Atmospheric entry in 10 minutes. Warning. Trajectory altered. Current course will result in impact with Pacific Ocean at coordinates. I tuned out the computer's voice, focusing on my transforming arm. The skin was darkening, hardening into something that wasn't skin anymore. Something chitinous and jointed. Alien, we will reach your world, through you or another, it matters not, we are patient. The transformation was accelerating, spreading across my chest now. I could feel it reaching for my heart, my lungs. My mind, with my still human hand, I checked the pod's course one last time. The Mariana Trench, the deepest darkness on Earth, a fitting tomb, atmospheric entry in 5 minutes. I looked out the viewport at Earth, beautiful, unsuspecting Earth. Home to billions of innocent lives. I couldn't risk bringing this infection to them. I wouldn't be responsible for that. The transformation had reached my neck now, creeping up toward my face. I could feel my thoughts changing, becoming less human with each passing second. Soon I wouldn't be me anymore, wouldn't care about protecting Earth. Atmospheric entry beginning. Warning, critical trajectory. Impact imminent. The pod began to shake violently as it hit the upper atmosphere. Through the viewport I could see flames licking at the edges as the heat shield did its work. Soon it would be over. You cannot destroy us. We are eternal. We are the void between stars. The voice was stronger now, resonating through my changing body. But I held on to my humanity, my purpose, with everything I had left. Impact in 60 seconds. The ocean was visible now, a vast blue expanse rushing up to meet the pod. Not the populated coastlines or shipping lanes, but the empty, abyssal plain of the Pacific. The trench. The transformation had reached my jaw, my cheeks. I could feel my eyes changing, multiplying, my perception fragmenting into a kaleidoscope of images. We will return, find another vessel. Your sacrifice means nothing. Impact in 30 seconds. Maybe the voice was right. Maybe this sacrifice would ultimately mean nothing. Maybe these creatures would find another way to Earth, another unwitting human to infect, but I had to try. Had to give humanity a chance. The ocean filled my fractured vision now, rushing up at incredible speed. The pod shuddered and groaned as it tore through the lower atmosphere. Impact in 10 seconds. With the last remnants of my human will, I formed a final thought, a warning to a world that would never hear it. They're coming from the stars, from the void, prepare. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The pod hit the water with catastrophic force. Metal tore, systems failed. Water rushed in, cold and final. The pressure began to build immediately as the pod sank, plummeting toward the crushing depths of the trench. The creature that had once been Dr. Kessler struggled against the incoming water, its alien physiology fighting to adapt, to survive. But even it could not withstand the immense pressure of 7 miles of ocean. As the pod descended into the absolute darkness of Earth's deepest abyss, the last spark of human consciousness within the transforming body felt something like peace. A final victory, but deep within the dying mass something survived. A spore, a seed, dormant but not dead, waiting, patient, eternal. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, in the crushed remains of an escaped pod, it would wait for years. Decades, centuries if necessary, until someone came looking, until curiosity drew humanity to this dark grave, and then it would begin again.